Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. Looks like we've got some thermals under control, and it looks like our screensaver stuttering problem with flurry and drift seem to have worked themselves out. They're solved. I don't know what happened. Maybe a miracle. I don't know. But here's the thing. When I got this computer, of course, it only had 4 gigs of RAM in it. And it had a 275 gig SSD that somebody had upgraded. Why did they not upgrade the RAM? Anyway, so now we got 16 gigs of RAM and a 480 gig SSD. I went through a lot of different things, like, is it a compatibility issue with the drive, whatever. I mean, weird stuff happens. But I did a lot of research too into temperatures of Intel chips, and they do actually normally run hot as it is anyways. Usually not in the 60s and 70s on boot up, okay, or just doing nothing. That's not normal, okay, but 50 is, you know, quite the acceptable range, it seems, which is also telling me my Asus TUF is getting a thermal repaste because somebody didn't do that one right either. However, I'm going to order MX6 for that computer because I want, like, the best paste I can get for that gaming rate because it's a monster. Anyways, so we're sitting around 48 degrees. We finally got our fans back down to just automated through max fan speed control, and we're running around 2000 RPM, and that's even with an external screen. And an external screen, by the way, will actually cause your computer to run a little warmer, okay? Especially if you're running your laptop screen and a desktop screen at the same time, they do tend to run a little bit hotter. And that's just perfectly normal because you're pulling more out of the CPU and GPU to do all this work, right? And you still haven't fired up an application yet. In running Activity Monitor 2, you can see we got 16 gigs of RAM. Our operating system's using 2.83 gigs of that, so we're nowhere near swap. If you enter swap, your computer will also get extremely warm too, by the way, before you even do anything. So this is why you need RAM in your computer, and lots of it. This thing is actually maxed out at 16 gigs. However, drift would normally screw up pretty fast. I tested every single screensaver built into Catalina yesterday. Spent all day doing it and part of the evening. And even flurry and drift screwed up once or twice. And then I went and repeated them back again, and no more problems. So what I'm thinking here is a thermal repaste is due, but make sure you've got good paste. And this Arctic stuff seems to be like the good stuff. It's working. However, paste when you initially put it on is very creamy and kind of dampish, you know what I mean? And so it needs time to heat up and to kind of set. Kind of like glue, right? You put glue, like wood glue for example. You're gluing something together. The stuff is really wet and it dries to whatever color depending on the glue you're using. That takes several hours to cure, okay, and to set itself up even before you can even touch anything. Well, the same thing seems to apply to thermopaste. It needs that time to actually set itself up so that it works effectively or efficiently the way it's supposed to. Okay, so this is something to take into consideration, that if you aren't noticing temperature drops right away, give it time. Run the computer. When you fire up your screensaver, you're also pulling more from the graphics side and the CPU side, and it is going to bring your temperatures up a little bit, like 62 degrees, 60 degrees, and it's starting to fall. Okay. Now, Intel chips run hot, and they get hot fast as well, no matter what you're doing. But the more heavy-duty the program, of course, the faster this occurs, and the higher temps you can expect. But you shouldn't be running thermal throttling temperatures when you're just doing light-duty tasks, right? I mean, video editing, oh, definitely, they're going to get cookie, right? They're Intel chips after all, or AMD chips, right? Intel actually runs hotter than AMD, by the way. AMDs tend to run a lot cooler. But something with Intel, right? You know, hey, you know the i9, it's a nuclear power plant waiting to go boom. you know, because it draws so much power, requires so much power, it's nuts, right? Even the i7s can be pretty raunchy too, so they're going to run hot too. But now you can see we're down to 52 degrees, and our fan speed is at 2,000, and I'm just like, I'm still dumbfounded as to why these screensavers, the two, were glitching out on people. I have never honestly ever had this happen, and I've had a 2012 MacBook Pro before, and I've never had it happen until this one. And the only thing I can see is the causality, not only in this one, would be also for other users, even with different MacBooks. Okay, it's not just the 2012 MacBook doing it. Check the forums, and I think it's just a thermal paste. Either it was very piss poorly done at the factory, or by the time this did start acting up on them, they had already been using their computer for quite a long time, you know, maybe a couple of years, and they finally updated to Catalina, and Catalina is more demanding than the previous OS, and so on. And yeah, the thermal paste is only going to last so long on a computer anyways. It should probably be redone every couple of years, but nobody ever does, you know. That's the thing. But you know, this old dog, it had the original paste in it, I'm sure. You can usually tell when somebody's had a computer apart, but and it seems that nobody has had this one disassembled, so I'm calling it original, and it looked really, it was bad. So yeah, new paste was definitely in order. And like I said, we have no more problems with this. It's just like, boom, it's like it self-healed itself. But it did take a few days of running the living snot. I was running this computer, just having it sit and do nothing on a screensaver I knew would work. I ran it for an entire day like that, just sitting there, la la la, and the fan was running like 5,000 RPM, and la la la, my temps were still up, and I'm still like, why is it still 60 degrees? So I looked into it, and yep, sure enough, an external screen is definitely going to do that for you. Okay, let's disable that, unplug it from the computer, run its own screen, and we didn't see much of a temperature drop, a couple of degrees, but not very much. But now it's getting right down there to, like, you know, 40s, and this is good. This is where it should be sitting at realistically. For an Intel chip. I mean, our Mac M1 chips, they generally sit at idle at 30, 32 degrees, and it takes an awful lot to get an M1 to get hot. Or an Intel, it doesn't take much than breathing the wrong direction and it starts to heat up. But I've also been experimenting with, I've got this stand, because with the Macs, as you know, our exhaust comes out the back, okay, not from the bottom. There's no slits in the bottom or any of that stuff for cooling. So I thought, alright, I'm in a little cabinet now with this thing. It's kind of a suffocation thing. Is it going to make a difference between being up on a stand and not, and just sitting flat? Turns out, it also, in this experiment, has made absolutely zero difference. So, we know that that's not a big deal, because some guys have mentioned, oh, I got it on a cooling plate. Why? It's a Mac. A cooling plate's doing nothing for you. Which is true. It absolutely does not. Not on these MacBooks. The cooling plate does not matter. You're not helping yourself. But, anyways. So, that is pretty much our final verdict on this. If you are having screen stuttering, especially on those two screensavers, which seem to be the eyesores, and I don't know why it's just those two, you know, maybe you should consider re-thermal pasting your computer. But like I said, get good thermal paste. I recommend the Arctic MX4, or you could go MX6 if you want the really top drawer stuff. I know when I redo my Asus gaming system, it's only like, what, not quite a year old, or it's a year old by now. That's going to be redone with MX6. So I'm going to order some of that stuff in, because it's a really hardcore computer compared to this little old thing, and it heats up enough as it is. You know, I mean, it idles at like 60 something degrees. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to redo the thermal paste in that, because I have a feeling that the factory did a crummy job of it. So I'm going to redo it the right way, and hopefully we see a temperature drop in that, which will also help with performance. But anyways, so here's the scoop. Redo your thermal paste. Give it a couple of days to burn in so that it can set itself up. If you do run an external display, your temperatures are going to climb by only a couple of degrees, not a whole lot. Okay, if you want to run an external screen on your laptop, you know, just go from there with it. I think you should be fine because this thing has definitely fixed itself finally, and the two screensavers that were baddies both run absolutely fine now. I have no issues, no stuttering, no glitching of any kind. And it wouldn't take more than a few seconds at some points for this thing to glitch. And I ran it for like hours and not even one problem. And I was like, wow, that is incredible. And of course, you know, the other one here is called Flurry. And that would be this one. This Arab SKU ran flawless right from the get-go, and so did Shell. Message ran fine. Everything here ran absolutely perfect. Like, why is it just the two? There had to be something there. And I guess maybe these things are a little bit more raunchier on the system. I have no idea, but seems to have fixed itself. Temps are now under control. I can lower that RPM right down to idle speed now, which is fantastic. Don't have to worry about it. So yeah, looks like thermal paste seems to be the cure. But get good stuff and stay away from the really cheap brands that they have at Best Buy. Don't buy that stuff. It is not good, especially the Corsair stuff. And some people, they just look at it right away and go, oh, all of a sudden, look, boom, like magic, it's running cooler. Yeah, what about an update? And other people have had very bad experiences. Many people have bad experience with Corsair. I've had bad experience with their other products, so, you know. But you got to investigate, you know, you got to find out what the good stuff is. And Arctic does seem to be a really awesome brand of thermal paste. And like I said, I bought the MX4 for this. I'm going to go MX6 for my gamer laptop. So, in my Mac, well, I don't have to worry about that. That thing runs like an ice storm anyways. Alright, so that's pretty much all we got for you. This is your update. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.